Dear netizens, yesterday, US stock market fell. I think the decline in the US stock market is already certain. I will make a video shortly and put it on Patreon for those members who pay $50 to view, which is about what I will do now. I will analyze my position for everyone, whether I will make any trades. But generally speaking, I will do some options trading. I will explain options trading. I will start doing options trading. All right, March 4th. This is when the tariffs come into effect. The US targeting major trade partners. Tariffs on Mexico and Canada, effective on the 4th. Panic index vaccine deaths surged over 16%. This went 20 in the 20s and up to 20. Vaccine deaths. Each 25 went up to the 20s. It bounced up like this. This is Wall Street, closing with a big drop. First, let me explain this tariff. The tariff added on March 4th is a 10% tariff on China, without a doubt. The tariffs on Canada, Mexico, that's what he said. I've never seen a US act so frivolously. The secretary said it will be added, but how much to add is decided by Donald Trump, I suspect. There are some exemptions. Some are just not imposing 25%. Why should we? I've never seen a mature government act like this, adding tariffs. Still can't decide, because it must be because the two factions are contending. Some people worry causing inflation. Some people think it must be added. The faction Donald Trump wants adding it. The decision will be made this afternoon. He will announce it. I don't know if it has taken effect today. Don't know the tariff amount. Today, the US and Canada, US and Mexico customs will have to pause and wait there for the order. However, this matter definitely exists. We will follow up if there are any new developments. Let's have a look. How much Magnificent 7 dropped, mainly talking about the percentage of the drop. This is quite serious. Meta dropped 13%, Microsoft 8%, Amazon 7%, Apple a bit less, 3%, US down 3%, Tesla 8%, Nvidia 10%, Netflix 6.x%. Whoa! It's almost just in one day, right off 10%. So that means, when I say this, it means of the money investing in stocks, out of $10, out of $100, I only hold $30 stock. So yesterday I lost $3, but become new wealth. You know. During this period, I lost $5, but it was earned back. All right. The Dow Jones dropped a little bit. Dow Jones, Standard & Poor's, dropped 1.76%. Nasdaq dropped 2.64%. Philadelphia Semiconductor, this was the most severe, dropped 4%. 10-year US Treasury, 5 basis points. Well, this is very serious. Dropped to 4.178. This is extremely serious. Stock-bond conflict. If these situations are several things dropping together, stocks, bonds, Bitcoin, gold. Why? Because the current threat is return of inflation rate hikes and recession. All tools are declining unless you hold cash. All right, Nvidia dropped by 8 point something %, dropped by $10. Nvidia fell below 30,000. Shrank $265 billion. It was from 100 at its peak, $150, $153, $153, 52-week low 75. It's actually quite a bargain. I'll tell everyone why this stock. But will I hold on at this moment? For you Patreon members, I'll discuss it there. E-ratio 38.82. I'll release a report today about Nvidia. It will at least grow by 50% next year. That is, the PE will drop to around 22 times for such a high-growth stock. 22 times PE. Should you buy it? That depends. You can see it for $10. That Nvidia report. Donald Trump on the 3rd. Due to China's effective suppression of the opioid fentanyl epidemic, adding 10% more tax, always bringing up fentanyl. Why? Because only then, the power he's using now is emergency economic state. Congress approves the tariff increase, but because safety of U.S. at risk. So let's talk about two things. One is illegal immigration. Actually, illegal immigration. According to him, Mexicans immigrating U.S. He wants to express his achievements. Their immigration department has decreased by 95%. So, the U.S. Immigration Department has decreased by 95%, so you express your achievements. If there are no illegal immigrants, it becomes empty. Oh, fentanyl is difficult to measure. All right. China's counterattack. China's counterattack is important. On chicken, wheat, corn, cotton, an additional 15%. Which figure is big? Corn, 10,000 tons from the US to China. On sorghum, soybeans, pork, beef, fish, fruits and vegetables, 10% on processed products. This is sorghum is used for making maritai, those imports. Not a lot. Soybeans are significant. Soybeans are significant. Soybeans imported from US, approximately 30 to 40 million tons. This is a major item the US sells to Chinese things. An additional 10% tariff, strictly speaking. That is, you can't buy that much elsewhere. There are two options, 10% tariff. The first is that Chinese consumers have to pay more. Another is that those soybeans are rerouted to other places and then sent to China. This in turn promotes causing the U.S. economy to be somewhat impacted. Of course, it's tens of billions of dollars for an economy large as the U.S. The impact is not severe. What is severe then? The U.S. tariffs taking effect will impose on the U.S. 30 billion Canadian dollars goods, an additional 25% tariff. These are targeted at certain red states. The goods purchased, for example, from Republican states, the exported goods are subject to additional tariffs. This is another counterattack. All right, people discussing this today. Buffett couldn't help but speak out. In fact, we have a lot of experience. That is to say, given his long life, of course, being in his 90s, he has lived through the start of World War II, how we imposed tariffs, and then how tariffs were reduced. In fact, to some extent, imposing tariffs phone warfare. Let me explain to everyone. The impact of tariffs is extremely significant. It affects the flow of goods. The moment affects the flow of goods, it causes the relative advantages of Li Chiao's invention and the labor division Adam Smith to not be fully realized. In such a situation, it will harm the economy, economic harm, inefficient economy, he said. Over time, it becomes a kind of sales tax. It is a kind of sales tax. It's equivalent to a sales tax, which is a tax on consumers. This tooth fairy is what children used to say, that when you lose a tooth fairy, who will grant your wishes? Of course, it won't be these tooth fairies who pay. It's the consumers who pay. So what? Then what? After you add this, what will happen next? In economics, you would ask, what happens after adding tariffs? When asking the economy, he says, this is the interesting topic, but I won't talk about it. I can't tell. I really can't tell you. He doesn't dare to talk about it. Actually, he's predicting a recession. Doesn't want to offend Trump administration. He won't offend the Trump administration. Over the past year, he has been in defensive mode. Now he is being $340 billion, $340 billion, $340 billion, $340 billion, $340 billion, $340 billion. Never has there been so much. Never has there been so much. Never before has there been a heavy part in his portfolio in cash. In 2005, he almost several times during the 2000 bubble. He also held a lot of cash in 2005 housing bubble at its peak. He also held a lot of cash. As a result, he made a lot of money. I am very impressed. Once in 2008, as a result, it fell. He bought things back up. Invested in Bank of America, invested in those that was so cheap. Who has that much money? Had to find him to join for shares. Give shares, save those companies. He made a lot of money. This is the opportunity to make money. This is chance to make a lot of money. All right. President, Reserve St. Louis, Monday. Signs of economic decline shown. Signs economic deterioration. Signs economic deterioration. Signs economic deterioration. Overall growth, labor force data currently still look good. All right. U.S. interest rates are inverted. U.S. interest rates are inverted. Economic interest rates are low. This indicates regarding current economic outlook, it is pessimistic. When fears of an economic slowdown, people worry economic slowdown, interest rates will invert. Late in the economic cycle. Nomura Securities analysis says, the Trump administration. What Trump administration is doing, I will explain it in the end. I'll discuss others' explanations. By significantly cutting spending. Imposing tariffs. Causing a mild recession. Making an economy less dependent on government. Shift to private sector. Shift to the private sector. This strategy in the short term may raise pressure economic decline, alter growth model of U.S. economy, but reshape U.S. growth model. But she focuses on one thing. Reduce. reduce, reduce, reduce. This is contrary to the matter hand, impose tariffs. It's not about allocating more money to the government. There are two purposes. Impose tariffs, reduce the deficit. He believes the current 36 trillion deficit, that debt must be reduced. The US will go bankrupt. Impose tariffs. I'll calculate it in a moment. He calculates it to be 800 to 900 billion US dollars. This calculation. Secondly, force those manufacturing companies to move back to the US. The tariffs are not as Nomori said. The new government has chosen short-term pain over long-term pain. Cutting $1 trillion in spending within a year, originally planned to be completed gradually over 5 to 10 years. The result could be a severe economic recession. The latest Federal Reserve forecast, that economic recession, the Atlanta Federal Reserve Bank released the latest GDP. The economy was downgraded. First quarter economic forecast minus 1.5. On February 19th, it was still positive 2.3. 2 weeks it was positive 3, now changed to minus 4.5. This is a very objective indicator. All right, let me count. Now I'll tell you about the tariffs to be added. That's 25% on Canada and Mexico. Not be applied. 20% on China, 25% on steel and aluminium worldwide. This has already been added. And next is. This is first. 25% tariff on car imports worldwide. 25% tariff on semiconductor imports worldwide. 25% tariff on pharmaceutical imports. Timber is under study. Might also have tariffs added. Another term is reciprocal fees. Where a reciprocal tariff is applied, they will be applied to the EU, Vietnam, Malaysia, Singapore, Taiwan. Then will Japan and South Korea have a 25% tariff? Urban, it might not be 25%. Total imports of the US. I'll say it again. Total imports of US, 4.1 trillion US dollars, if tariffs are applied according to the schedule. It amounts to 1.1 trillion US dollars. 1.1 trillion US dollars, because with tariffs, you'll buy less. 800 to 900 billion US dollars. 800 to 900 billion US dollars is used to cover the size. But because that purchasing power from 1.1 trillion reduced by 800 to 900 billion. It also reduces the momentum of economic growth. This 800-900 billion, the vast majority, is passed on to American consumers. This will cause a certain level of inflation. The US GDP is 23 trillion. 800 to 900 billion is 3% of the GDP. Even if you say it's not enough, it still becomes 2% inflation. In principle, this kind of inflation is one-off. One-off. Unless it causes supply chain disruptions. And this. Supply disruption and inflation expectations. This then becomes a resource circle. U.S. Commerce Secretary saying, and cause inflation. This is nonsense. Now the U.S. economy is very clear. Statisticians have calculated. The result is the vast most of the money is paid by American consumers, but the Trump admin doesn't believe it. All right. The damage to the economy lies in whether it will cause long-term inflation. I've always told everyone most concerned, I think even cars won't survive if Donald Trump doesn't retract these policies by April. When car tariffs are increased, I feel the price of cars in the US will increase 40 to 50%. Why? Isn't it a 25% tariff? Because of the shortage issue. Because of the shortage issue might increase 40-50%. Those iPhones and such coming from China will have a 20% tariff. iPhone manufacturing phones in the US haven't increased in price because Apple is a very large company. Its influence is very strong. With inventory, it won't. Stock depletes, raise prices. That's how it is. All right, the two things I'm most afraid of. First is because of this inflation, Fed Reserve raising interest rates. The Reserve raises interest rates. BAT expected to cut rates. Comes raising rate. Last time they raised rates like this, raising rates due to inflation. Stock market dropped 30%. This is what I've been worried about. What's the second point? The second point is retaliation from other countries. If other countries retaliate, if China plans retaliation the US today, will the US retaliate against China again? Retaliation, retaliation. This is like. It's like. It becomes. This. When will the cycle of revenge end? This experience is the worst. Back in 1930, the US faced a depression, increased tariffs. The whole world opposed them. Glasgow Act. They raised tariffs 45 to 90%. The world fell into a depression.